Hello and welcome to my channel Polyglot Reading. My name is David and now it's the beginning of the year again, and this time of the year also here on booktube. It's the usual time for videos with annual reviews, with discussions about reading plans for the new year, and with many new year good resolutions. And one thing that always strikes me at the beginning of the year is videos in which the TBR lists, or literally the physical pile of unread books, is discussed. And I notice that this is often done in a way that seems like a bit shameful, like a confession, like a penitence about shopping fits, like a sorrowful confession or a guilty plea that again this year the number of unread books on the shelf has not been reduced to zero this year either, but has perhaps even increased. So booktubers plan and promise to buy less and to read more. So as if a huge stack of unread books were something of a social disgrace or an ugly entry in the reader's list of sins, or at least a sort of deplorable character weakness that needs to be fought with a lot of zeal. Today, I am tempted to go completely against the grain on this topic and invite you to a completely opposite point of view. So I will start an enthusiastic song of praise for having a huge pile of unread books, a huge TBR pile. First off, this is not satire and not ironic, but it's meant absolutely serious. And I don't want to act like a smart aleck and a know-it-all, but I would just like to invite you to at least consider it as a sort of a thought experiment, an alternative point of view of the physical TBR pile. And maybe, just maybe, you will also feel after doing this thought experiment the same way I do, that such a change of perspective can turn out to be actually quite liberating. I am deeply convinced that a huge pile of unread books, or a high proportion of unread books in your personal library, is something extremely positive. It's a great treasure. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's on the contrary, to be proud of. It's an ocean of possibilities, and nothing to be ashamed of, or nothing to necessarily work on to reduce to zero. On the contrary, a physical TBR is something to be celebrated and to be enjoyed, something to be proud of. There's so much literary enjoyment and different perspectives on the world. They are still available to you just at your fingertips, and that you can enjoy and discover at any time you like. So whenever it tickles your fancy, that's the beauty of having a huge pile of unread books at hand. So I consider a library with a huge number of unread books something like a well-stocked wine cellar. So the value of a wine cellar is not determined by the bottles that have already been emptied. That would be ridiculous. But the beauty and the value of a wine cellar is in the bottles that have not yet been emptied and enjoyed. It's the estimation and the anticipation of the extent of future pleasure and enjoyment and relish that determines the value of such a collection. And why should it be any different with books? I find that really absurd. I believe that it can be extremely liberating to look at unread books not as a burden, but as a potential, as a treasure trove that has almost, but not quite been unearthed. And so I would like to invite you to try to see things from this perspective, to just take a deep breath and let your gaze sweep proudly and full of joyful anticipation over the rows of unread books on your shelves. You don't need to see each unread book as a debt or a mortgage still to be repaid, but rather as a treasure map yet to be explored, or as a lottery ticket yet to be opened, or a voucher yet to be claimed for a romantic dinner with another fascinating person. So I imagine the possibilities of that lie dormant in the pile of unread books. I think that's really a beautiful treasure. So what a treasure trove full of future entertainment, education, but also reading fun. So I have roughly estimated that there are about 2,000 books on my bookshelves, and also rough estimate is that give or take 10% of these books are still unread. So currently I have around about 200 unread books in my personal library. And so what? That's actually a good thing. It doesn't worry me the slightest. Quite the opposite, in fact. I'm happy for the number to even increase. So let's not kid ourselves. Realistically speaking, we will most likely not reread or read for a second time the majority of already read books on our shelves. So books that we have already read, they're ultimately just dead trophies on our shelves. It's almost as silly and vain as the antlers of shot deers and stags used to be in the hunting rooms of stately homes in past centuries. It's just a vanity. Look, I've read all these books, so I'm so well read and educated. Actually, it's ridiculous. On the other hand, unread books, so in our shelves, they're uh, have a much more potential. They are much more a likable and humble and realistic expression of the fact that the little knowledge we have gained and accumulated and the little we have read, all of this is only a tiny sip from the great ocean of culture, of literature and knowledge. So these unread books, they are a constant reminder not to overestimate ourselves, our education, our learnedness, our knowledge and reading. And those people who are always aware of how much they still do not know, how much they still haven't read by all their unread books as a reminder in the shelves. People who are conscious of how much there still is to learn and to discover, even on their own bookshelves. People of that kind are, I believe, much better protected from unfounded arrogance and from becoming know-it-alls, smart alecks. So such a person with a lot of unread books and being aware of it is always aware that there may be completely different valid opinions and perspectives hidden somewhere between these unread pages, new perspectives that maybe they can turn even upside down even my deepest convictions, or at least help me to readjust them, recalibrate them, so that it make me aware that all my knowledge, all my convictions may be temporary only. And so a large stack of unread books is therefore also an expression of a cosmopolitan character who is not easily seduced into arrogance and self-sufficiency. So to put it bluntly, beware of people who, like a vain peacock, only want to show you the books they have already read. Much more interesting are those people who have an inkling of the imperfection of their literary education and whose curiosity about the world is also reflected in a large number of still unread books on their shelves. So I invite you to be also quite relaxed about your own huge physical TBR pile. So is there anybody that we have to be that we are accountable for the percentage of books we have read, of the books we bought? Uh, to whom should we be accountable for that? Other booktubers, or the the world after us, posterity, or our heirs? To be honest, if the people who inherit our books or our book collection, if they are not readers at all, then all the books will go into the waste. Whether they are read or unread, it won't make any difference. On the other hand, if the people who inherit our book collection, if they are readers, then they will be equally happy about the books they inherit. And their joy may vary a little bit and depend on the composition of our collection and on individual titles, but it will have nothing to do with whether how many of the books they inherit have been read and how many haven't been. So of course, with regards to buying books, there are some limits to what is spatially possible and economically justifiable and feasible. And there is certainly such a thing as a sort of pathological buying addiction, but these are extreme cases that are likely to be very rare. And and the limit of what is economically safe varies greatly from one person to another. So one person maybe can only afford 1 or 2 new books a month, the next person perhaps 200. So without having to fear economic ruin. So this is something that is very individual, and of course it has to be, you have to bear this in mind, your economic possibilities. And so same as keeping the peace with your family or housemates, so it's not to overstretch their tolerance level to books crammed in every nook and cranny. But within these limits of what is economically and spatially feasible and sound, within these limits, I would simply like to invite you to take a very relaxed approach to your own pile of unread books, to see them as something you simply can't get enough of. For a literature lover, having a large collection of unread books is almost essential, I'd say. Just as a do-it-yourself person needs a wide range of screws, of nails, of wrenches, and screwdriver tips. Um, and it would be crazy to demand that you only buy a new screwdriver tip when you have used up all the old ones that you already have, or you've used all the screws that you have. That's nonsense. And so in the same way, a bookworm, a literary person, a person interested in literature and culture needs a well-stocked library of unread books as a tool. So I once read the following sentence, and I don't know where or by whom. That sentence goes like this: a good library is filled with mostly unread books. That's the point. I think this is a suitable final sentence for this video. So that's it for today. I wish you a great new year with many book hauls, and I hope that I've been successful in my plea for a more relaxed approach to your physical TBR pile. So there's a reason to celebrate your TBR pile, to be proud of it, and make sure it doesn't fade away, but it grows and thrives magnificently also this year. Hope to have you with me next time. See you then. Take care. Bye bye and ciao.